Hey guys, welcome to the X-Ring. So you want to go long range shooting. Today we're going to cover everything you need to learn how to go long range all the way out to distance. What equipment, what tools, what helps and what doesn't help. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. Alright guys, welcome to this episode of the X-Ring. Today we're talking about long distance shooting or precision rifle shooting. So for those of you that are interested in getting into it, you're going to need to have a couple pieces of equipment if you're going to get into this game, and one is an accurate rifle, something that can at least hold 1 minute of angle, or very simply about a 1-inch group at 100 yards. I wouldn't have anything that shoots larger than that. You're going to have a hard time getting those targets that are further out there. But today we're on a 1,000-yard range. We're shooting some ARs out to 800 yards, and we're shooting some bolt guns out to 1,000. Now, as far as the accurate rifle, it's your choice what you get. The longer the barrel, the more velocity you're going to have. But one thing that I don't ever skimp on, and that is the scope. You need something that is a good quality scope, that is repeatable. Now, good quality scope doesn't always mean you have to spend $3,000 on a scope, okay? Now, typically those scopes are a little more robust. They usually track better, but you don't want to go and put a lower end scope that you got at Walmart on there. One of the other things you're going to need is a scope that has external turrets, or turrets that are easily adjustable with your fingers. Because when you go from, let's say, 100 yards and then you all of a sudden go out to 700 yards, you don't need to be looking for a penny or something to try to adjust your turrets for the drop that's going to happen when you shoot those distances. So a good quality rifle. One of the recommendations that I have with regards to a bolt gun, one of the best guns out there right now for the money, and that's as far as price, adjustability, availability of calibers, is going to be the Ruger RPR. It's hard to beat that rifle. You can get one of those for $1,000 to $1,200, $1,300. So that's going to be your bolt gun platform to get your feet wet in it. As far as scopes, I'm going to leave that up to you guys, but make sure you get a good, decent scope that tracks well.
All right, Sergio,
all right, so these are some buddies of mine, Matt and Sergio.
It's to the right.
He's trying to get his AR dialed in for a competition we've got coming up, and we've got a spotter. So Matt's on the spot and scope.
Okay.
He can see the trace of the vapor trail.
Ready? Yeah, send it.
You got Sergio shooting out at 700.
Dead nut center. You're good.
And that was a dead center hit on steel at 700 yards. All right, guys, hopefully if you like that intro, it means you're really wanting to get into long-range shooting or longer distance shooting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to review some things, but after reviewing what I had said earlier about the Ruger RPR, I realized that, someone going out and spending $1,000 to $1,200 on a new rifle, even without their optic, is a lot of money, okay? So I realized that. So what I want to do is I want to cover long-range shooting, but maybe we'll break this up into a couple series. We'll do like a budget series and then something for, higher end equipment and gear with higher end scopes and whatnot. So if you want to get started in long range shooting or long distance shooting, of course, you're going to need a place to be able to shoot those distances. So let's say you get that established and, you've got a 400 or 500 yard range that you can shoot at. That's great. Now you're going to need the platform like we had talked about. You want a rifle that can hold about a 1-inch group at 100 yards. You don't have to have a lot of money in that. You can have something like a Remington 700 or a Savage or something, just to get your feet wet in it, just so you can understand it and what's the best way to approach it. You're also going to want that scope that I had mentioned. All of that matters. So this is a budget setup. Let's get started. So about 2 years ago, a buddy of mine offered me this rifle. It was a Remington 700. It was in 308, and he wanted $400 for just the rifle. And I said, sure, I'll buy it. Why not? It had a 16-inch barrel, and that's why he didn't like it. It's because it didn't have enough barrel length to get him the velocity that he wanted. But I was looking for a rifle that I could put a suppressor on, so it was perfect. 16-inch barrel. By the time I had my suppressor, I'm looking at 22 inches or so. I'm giving up a lot, though. With that 16-inch barrel, I'm going to get a lower or slower muzzle velocity. Okay, so I've got 400 in the rifle. I picked up the scope used from a friend of mine. It is not a high-end scope. It is a millet. You can get these things brand spanking new for $300, through Midway or someplace like that. I paid him $100 for it. He threw in the rings, and I had to buy a base for the rifle. Okay, so the base is what the ring's attached to. And that base cost me about $60 or so. Now, this is a lower-end scope.
it leaves a lot to be desired. I don't know where it's made. It's probably made in China or someplace like that, but it had the external turrets on it. It had a mil dot reticle inside of it where I had mil dots, and I said, you know what, bang for the buck, why not? I got $500 tied up in the whole thing, and I even have picked up a set of bipods for it. Now the bipod for this looks like a Harris. It's very similar to one. I think it's a knockoff, but it does the job. It does the same thing a Harris does. It can extend and collapse, and you can adjust for different heights and whatnot. This thing also had the ability to cant. So if I was on an unlevel surface, let's say I was on a hillside or something, I can actually rotate the rifle to get it back straight up and down. You don't want to do any long distance shooting, if you can help it, off axis where you're shooting at a cant, okay? That does make a big difference on impacts at distance, and so you want to try to get the rifle as vertical or as straight as possible, or as level as possible. So this whole setup, I've got less than $600 in it, but guess what? I can do long distance shooting with it. And something else you might want to consider is a shooting bag of some sort. This is a tab gear bag, very versatile bag, because I have the ability to go long ways for elevation. I can insert my hand here, and so on the stock, if I needed to raise or lower where I was looking, I can do that. I can also squeeze the bag to increase it or release the bag to lower it. If that's too high, I can rotate it around, and on the other side I can insert my hand here, and now I can get it even lower if I need to. I can still squeeze it. You don't have to buy a bag. You can use an old sock, tie a knot in it, put some popcorn kernels, sand, whatever. You know, make sure that the sock will hold the sand if you do that. Some guys will use shot out of a shot bag for a shotgun, but those are some things you're going to want to have, okay? A bag, a rifle. Shooting mat's recommended. You can get a shooting mat for about $20, $25 on Midway. I think they sell some of theirs. I've had this shooting mat for about 20 years or so. It works, but it keeps my workspace clean. When I'm on the ground, I'm not getting dirt all over me. I'm not, getting dirt all over my bullets and my boxes and my paperwork, because you're going to be kicking up dust with your muzzle brake, or, just from the muzzle blast itself. So a shooting mat is nice to have. Something else that I've been using for a long time, late 80s, early 90s, we all had data books, dope books, if you will. You're going to hear that term a lot, dope. They're not asking about your weed or anything like that. What they want to know is, if you tell them, hey, I'm going to take this shot at 300 yards. Well, what's your dope on it? Dope data on previous engagement. So I can look into this book here and say, well, at 300 yards, it was 50 degrees. And when I shot then, it was, maybe 6 minutes or something like that. Data books are nice because they tell you specifics on this rifle at another date, another time, another place, and all of that data you keep with you and with the rifle. They have barrel logs in them, where you can keep track of everything from how many rounds you've got through it to environmentals, okay? What the barometric pressure was that day, what the altitude was of the place that you were shooting. All of that matters because it determines how well the bullet flies through the air that particular day. It could be 55 today and I could shoot it, and it could give me one recommendation, and then I shoot tomorrow, it's 55 out, feels the same to me, but maybe the barometric pressure changed, or maybe the temperature changed. Something changed to make it affect the bullet flight. That's important. So the more data you have, the better. What I really want to talk about is, with today's day and age, you don't need data books and things like that, although I still use them. But it's very easy to get into longer distance shooting with some of the modern apps that you have that you can get on your smartphones. Some good ones are Applied Ballistics or Strelok. And what these are, they're apps, they're ballistic solvers. So all you have to do is input data for your particular rifle. You'll probably start off with a new rifle, and they'll ask you to name it, and we'll call it X-Ring rifle or something like that. And then you're going to want to put in the caliber. So on a 308, let's say I was shooting Federal Gold Medal Match. Okay, this is like the standard, okay? If you're not into hand loading and all that, you want good quality match ammunition, you can use hunting ammunition or full metal jacket or something like that. But if you're really trying to get into long distance shooting and hit the smaller targets at distance, you want good quality match ammo. So you can go into that app and put in their manufacturer, Federal, and then the bullet weight, 168, Gold Medal Match, Sierra Match King, and it will, because of the data that they've gotten from Federal, It will figure out the ballistic coefficient for that bullet. It will figure out the muzzle velocity. If you don't know the muzzle velocity, it's usually printed on a box. Hornady does it. Federal does it. You can look right here. It says 2650. However, 2,650 feet per second out of the barrel. What length barrel was it? Because I sure as heck don't get that out of this. Remember, this is a 16-inch barrel. I'm lucky to get about 2,500 feet per second out of the muzzle for muzzle velocity. So these are things that are important to know. If you have a chronograph, great. But if you don't, there are still other ways around it. There are workarounds with those apps. So it's going to ask you a couple of other questions. It might ask you the bore height. That is simply going to be the center line of the bore to the center line of the scope, or height over bore. What you can do is just take a ruler or something like that, measure that distance. You don't need a set of calipers and go down to the hundredths. If it's 2 3/4, put it on there. You can, as long as you're within about 1/4 or 1/8, you are good. Just call it good. It's going to ask you your twist rate on the barrel. It's usually printed on the side of the barrel. It'll look like a 1 with a colon and then another number. If you don't know, you can always use a cleaning rod, insert it in, a free spinning cleaning rod. You can make a mark with a Sharpie or a pencil. And as you push it through, when you see that mark come back around again, you know that was one full rotation. You can make another mark there, pull out your cleaning rod, measure it, and if it's 11 inches, 11 inches of barrel to get one full rotation for that bullet. You'll insert that in there. It'll ask you right or left-hand twist. Most of your modern rifles are going to have right-handed twist. Occasionally you'll run across one that has a left-hand twist. If you're not sure, look down the barrel. You should be able to see which direction it's turning. Once you input all of this data, it will give you a solution, a range card, if you will. So if you zeroed this rifle and this scope for 100 yards, so you got 0 elevation, 0 windage, and let's say you have a piece of steel out there at your buddy's property and you just want to go from that 100-yard target and you want to see if you can shoot that 400. Well, you wouldn't have a clue. You wouldn't know how much to turn the turrets to get you close to that target. But you could go onto that ballistic app, put in there 400 yards, and with all the data you've put in there, it will give you a solution. Now, it might not be dead on the money, but it's going to get you into the general area. But the beauty of it is once you've taken that shot, let's say you were low, okay, and you had to come up even more. Let's say you had to come up to 6 MOAs, and that was dead on the money. Well, what you can do is you can ballistically true or tell that app, say, look, you recommended 4, but it was really 6. And when you put that in there, it will extrapolate that data to tell you what the approximate muzzle velocity was, okay? So on this right here, instead of the 2650, it would then be the 2500 or whatever that I came up with. At that point, it'll come up with a new set of solutions for your range card. So it's very, very easy to get into long distance shooting nowadays with the invention of these ballistics apps, not having to carry PDAs with you or anything like that. So guys, like I said, this was just how to get started in the long range on a budget setup, and how to shoot at distance with those. I mean, this rifle, even though it has a 16-inch barrel, don't be fooled. This rifle can hit 10 by 10-inch steels all day long at 700-800 yards. It's not the best tool for the job because I'm losing so much muzzle velocity. I'm not going to stay supersonic as long as something that had a 22 or 24-inch barrel, but it'll get the job done. So guys, if you're interested in long distance shooting, stay with us. In the next couple days, we'll be going over some more information. So guys, I want to apologize about not having videos out here anytime soon, but I've been doing a lot of training and everything else. I do know long distance shooting. I enjoy 3-gun and I enjoy shooting pistols and shotguns, but what I know is long distance shooting. I do a lot of LEO mill sniper competitions. I've won a lot in the past. Not bragging or anything, just letting you know my background with it, that I'm not somebody that's just started into it. So hopefully I'll get some more of this information out there, and stay tuned. I appreciate you guys subscribing. Don't forget to share the information and share the channel. We will talk to you soon. Have a good evening.